So this is the story of my race, the Southwest Traverse in Cornwall, a 45-mile ultra run that I worked very hard for but came very close to not succeeding in. The start of the day was a little bit compromised. I found on the Friday that I was developing a cold. On the Saturday I tried to use lots of first defence, lots of vitamin C, but it was clearly getting worse. A bit of a tickly cough, nose starting to get blocked, throat getting quite sore. COVID test was negative fortunately, but not an ideal start, so I was starting on the back foot despite a really solid block of training. So I didn't know what to expect. I had no thoughts about what finishing would look like. I only wanted to get out there and see what it was like.
Five minutes to race start.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! Joy!
Oh, there it is, there it is. Good luck!
So the first 10 miles were the probably best 10 miles in terms of just the ease of running. It is the best of the coast pass in terms of running the Lizard to Gunwallow. The route is not flat by any means, but it's nice, wide, spacious. The ground was quite well packed, but not so resisted as to impact the legs too badly. And in theory, should have been moving quite well. My pace was what I wanted it to be. I was deliberately trying to run quite slow, but I could feel that things were not right. My throat in particular was very sore. Breathing was much more laboured than it should have been. These first few miles should have been very easy for me, but the first 3 miles were actually quite difficult. So obviously quite concerned at that point, but was trying to make a point of just looking at the pace, thinking about getting to the checkpoint at Cornwall and trying to take in the views where I can. Coming across Low Bar, then up into Port 11 is a route I'm very familiar with. I've run the Lizard to Port 11 many times, and I was certainly a lot more tired than I should have been. I've run much further, much quicker on the exact same route and felt an awful lot better. Met my wife at Port 11 and put on a smile, but I did also say to her this is much harder than it should be. Down to the football club for the checkpoint in Port 11, way ahead of cut-off time, no problems there, and quickly back out heading towards Rincey. At this point I got a little bit of a second wind, my pace picked up, being on the tarmac seemed to help, but I knew from experience that running Rincey would be challenging, but my spirits were starting to lift at this point. Just over 16.5 miles and I'm all alone, just see a few people in the distance running up towards Rincey. The The route to Rincey has a lot of sharp ups, sharp downs, and the path is more tricky in places, and the steep bits are particularly steep, and there's some long uphills as well. So by the time I got to the Rincey car park, I was really feeling it. So 20 miles. Going through Rincey was really hard. So I got a little bit of a second wind. Hope it lasts. I'm having a mare. Past Rincey, I knew I was in quite serious trouble. Low energy. I felt I was well hydrated, but the body just was not responding in the way that I wanted it to. I was fueling appropriately, I thought, but maybe in hindsight I should have eaten a bit more for breakfast, but I don't think that was the key thing at this point. I think it becomes more of a factor later on. Arriving in Penzance at around about 27 miles, I was state and ready to quit. In fact, I did say to my wife, I don't know how I'm going to be able to carry on. She asked me if I should quit, and I eventually said no, but that's all I really wanted to do at that point. But I got to the aid station in Penzance, which in theory is at mile 29, but I make it more like mile 31. This will become important later on and plants a little seed of doubt in my mind in relation to cut-offs. But I managed to just about eat a pizza. Eating anything was very hard all the way through the day. So my plan of eating solid food at every aid stop and every time I saw my wife was not working. I did not have a plan B, so I was subsisting really on gels, which is not what I wanted to do, not what I trained to do either. But anyway, getting through Penzance, I was able to run a fairly regular pace. I was around about 12:30, which is absolutely ideal. So being on the tarmac was great, and I had a third or fourth wind, whatever wind I was on at this point. But then I had the long climb out of Mousehole, and unbeknownst to me, into the trickiest, most technical section of all that would last really the entirety of the way through to almost Land's End. Be a bit better. Steep path out of Mousehole. I suspect when you turn left it'll be even steeper. Oh, so steep. It's ridiculous. There's the calf. Twinge. Out of Mousehole, the coast path is in poor condition. Boulders, rocks, branches everywhere, and the paths were significantly overgrown. So moving with any sort of speed was very challenging. Never mind the fact I was on very tired legs indeed. At this point, I wasn't really able to do much more than walk, so I was just hoping that my energy would come back. Anytime I did break into a shuffling run, I'd come across a boulder or an obstruction or whatever it may be. My energy wasn't there. Getting down to Lamorna Cove, my optimism though was quite high. The reason being is that I felt I had plenty of time to get to the Minack Theatre, which is meant to be at mile 40. So I worked out that I could walk 20-minute miles, which is about what I was becoming capable of, and get to the Minack and get to Land's End. So I very foolishly said to my wife, I can just walk it in from here, even though I don't feel particularly good, even though I can't really eat very well. So off I went, and unbeknownst to me, this part of the route is just as tricky as the route I'd been on from Mousehole. So even though there are bits that are really quite runnable, at this point I feel absolutely shot. I have nothing in the tank. It's all I can do just to move forward and not just sit down. And that niggle that I had in Penzance about distances was starting to come true. I was rapidly realising that there's no way the Minack is at 40 miles. I can't seem to do anything about a walk. I don't know where the Minack, or when the Minack will appear. It might be a bit tight. If it's exactly 40, then it's fine, but I'm not sure they've been exact. People on the checkpoint reckon 3 miles, in which case it's going to be super tight. I've just got nothing. Checkpoint closes at 6:15. It's just gone 5:15. I have no idea how far I've got to go, because the people at the thing don't know. If I believe my watch, I've got 1.15 miles to go. I am exhausted. So it's worth noting, if you're watching this and thinking about running the Southwest Traverse, that by my metrics, I make the Minack at around about 41.5 miles. Now obviously there's variations in GPS routes. My GPS route may not be perfect. I did stop off in Port 11 to go to the toilet. I took a route ever so slightly wrong around Cornwall, but even so, the Minack is definitely further on, significantly further on than 40 miles. And there's somebody passed me on the way to Land's End who missed the cut-off at the Minack by about 15 minutes because he was pacing it based on it being 40 miles. So that is something to really, really bear in mind if you're going to be chasing cut-offs. And I wasn't planning on chasing cut-offs, that's just how my race ended up going. So then we had the run to the Minack, having shuffled, run, scrambled over rocks, sunk in some mud, and generally found it incredibly difficult. I really thought my time was up on this one, that I wasn't going to make the cut-off and I'd have to just call it at just a bit over 40 miles. As it turned out, 41.5 roughly. But I kept shuffling forward. When there was a flat, I shuffled, ran. When there was a downhill, if it wasn't too hazardous, I tried to build up a little bit of momentum. But generally I was going slower than I would have hoped. And I kept looking at the time, and it just ticked up, and the Minack did not get any closer. And as I got to 41 miles and the Minack still was barely in sight, I thought my time was gone. I got to the top of the hill that leads down to the Minack, and I heard people shouting for me, encouraging me to run. So I found something, I don't know where it came from, but I felt like I dashed down that hill faster than was probably safe, but I did it anyway. I didn't know why I was bothering. I thought I was out of time. I'd given up looking at my watch. I got to the bottom and they told me there was time, and I couldn't believe it. It was overwhelming. It's the hope that kills you, I suppose, and the thought of having to run up a hill and then run up those incredibly steep steps of the Minack to get to the checkpoint was almost overwhelming. But I pushed and dug deep, and as I came up the steps of the Minack, there were people shouting, including my wife, the mud crew team, and I managed to, well, I felt like I dashed up them. In fact, I think I went as fast as I could almost on my hands and knees. I was on all fours, certainly. Somehow I managed to get through the car park and into the checkpoint with a whole 68 seconds to spare. Absolutely wrecked. Breathing was ragged, and I was absolutely spent. But then I had to regather myself in pretty short order because I had 5 more miles to go. So somehow I managed to take on a little bit of fuel, get up and go again. Anyway, on the way to Land's End, and the effort I put on the Minack was weighing very heavy. I was a little disorientated. I was struggling to stand up, and moving forward was a huge effort. I knew essentially I had to average about 20-minute miles, which is ridiculous because usually I run 8:30, 8:45-minute miles very comfortably, but this is a different beast entirely. So I just kept moving forward and just hoping, knowing that I had that good quality training, that I'd find a level of recovery. And amazingly, at around about mile 42.5, 43, I started getting something back. Somehow I'm heading towards that end. Got less than 40 minutes to go. I have no idea how far I need to get. If it's more than 2 miles, I don't know if I can do it. If it is 2 miles, it's going to be an ask. Oh God, this is so intense. I'm gonna do this and leave it all out here. Watch says 0.7 miles remaining. I've got time. If that's accurate, it should be okay. Just to get to the top of the hill, and if it's reasonably flat, I go. It's been so hard, I've had no chance to appreciate the scenery at all. Maybe in retrospect, just need to get it done. I can't believe it till it's done. What a day. Let's go. Let's finish this. Southwest Traverse is a ridiculously beautiful and ridiculously hard race. I had a chance to sort of reflect on it and feel that it's probably harder than many 50 milers out there, just because of the landscape and the ups and the downs of the coast path. The weather was also nice enough, but pretty challenging. Quite a hot day as well. And I put in a huge amount of training for this, well over 800 miles over 5 months, plus nearly 300 miles of cycling as well. So I was very well trained for this, and almost didn't complete. This race is not for the faint of heart. This has to be, though, one of the most beautiful races going, and I'll definitely back, and hopefully not carrying a cold next time, so I can really properly enjoy these spectacular coves and paths, and just in a wonderful day. Huge thanks to Mud Crew, who were just enormously supportive, a fantastically well run event full of just amazing people, and my wife, who crewed me all the way throughout. I don't know how she got to the places she got with water and fuel. Without her, I doubt I would have been able to, well, maybe get past Penzance, and certainly not past the Minack. So if you're thinking about doing it, I would recommend you sign up, but really do commit to a training plan. I did a 50-mile training plan for this, and that was about right. If I had my time again, well, I wouldn't have a cold. I think that would have solved almost all my problems. I would have had a plan B for nutrition. I should have brought some baby food or something like that in, that I could have used quite usefully. I think that would have been a huge help. And I think the other thing I would have done is maybe substitute some of my cycling for more running. Maybe an extra 10 miles a week might have been useful. However, I think the training is quite manageable, and if you're already able to do marathons, if you've done a 50k or two, this is a really good step up, but it is a very significant step up. So hopefully this has whetted your appetite. That was my Southwest Reverse. Thank you for watching.